John Webster. John Webster was an English Jacobean dramatist best known for his tragedies The White Devil and The Duchess of Malfi, often seen as masterpieces of the early 17th century English stage. His life and career overlapped with Shakespeare's. Little is known of Webster's life. His preface to Monuments of Honor, his Lord Mayor's show for 1624, says he was born a freeman of the Merchant Tailors' Company. He was probably a coachmaker and possibly he was an actor. Apart from his two significant plays and the Devil's Law case, his dramatic work consists of collaborations. With Thomas Dekker, his main collaborator, he wrote Westward Ho and Northward Ho, published in 1607. He is also believed to have worked to varying degrees with William Rowley, Thomas Middleton, John Fletcher, John Ford, and perhaps Philip Massinger. 8 extant plays and some non-dramatic verse and prose are wholly or partly his. The most standard edition is the complete works of John Webster. Webster wrote one more play on his own, The Devil's Law Case. His later plays were collaborative city comedies, which included Anything for a Quiet Life, A Cure for a Cuckold, Keep the Widow Waking. He is believed to have contributed to the tragic comedy The Fair Maid of the Inn with John Fletcher, Ford, and Philip Massinger. His Appius and Virginia, probably written with Thomas Heywood, is of uncertain date. The White Devil. The White Devil is a tragedy by English playwright John Webster. According to Webster's preface to the 1612 quarto edition, to the reader, the play's first performance in that year was a notorious failure. He complained that the play was acted in the dead of winter before an unreceptive audience. The play's complexity, sophistication, and satire made it a poor fit with the repertory of Queen Anne's Men at the Red Bull Theatre, where it was first performed. It was successfully revived in 1630 by Queen Henrietta's Men at the Cockpit Theatre. As the play starts, Count Lodovico is exiled from Rome for his debauchery and murder. His friends Gasparo and Antonelli pledge to work on overturning his sentence. Meanwhile, the Duke of Bracciano harbors a fierce passion for Vittoria Corombona despite being married. Vittoria's brother Flaminio, employed as Bracciano's secretary, schemes to unite his sister with the Duke, aiming to advance his own career, much to their mother Cornelia's dismay. Their plan takes a hit when Bracciano's wife, Isabella, arrives with her brother and Cardinal Monticello, intent on exposing her husband's infidelity. Bracciano and Flaminio, desperate to keep their affair secret, arrange the murders of Camillo, that is Vittoria's husband, and Isabella. Vittoria faces trial for her husband's murder, and though no solid evidence exists against her, Cardinal Monticello condemns her to a convent for reformed prostitutes. To shield himself from implication, Flaminio feigns madness. Count Lodovico, previously banished, returns to Rome and vows to avenge Isabella's death after confessing his secret love for her. Isabella's brother, Francisco, also seeks revenge. He engineers a love letter to Vittoria, intending it to fall into Bracciano's hands to stoke jealousy. Although his plan initially succeeds, Vittoria convinces Bracciano of her fidelity and they elope. Cardinal Monticello becomes Pope and excommunicates the fugitive couple. Vittoria and Bracciano, now married, rule in Padua. 3 enigmatic strangers, Francisco in disguise as Mulinasa, a Moor, and Lodovico and Gasparo as Capuchin monks, conspire to avenge Isabella's death. They poison Bracciano, who reveals his murderer's identity before dying. Zank, Vittoria's Moorish maid, discloses the murders of Isabella, Camillo, and Flaminio to Mulinasa, who is actually Francisco. Flaminio, banished from the court for his involvement in Marcello's murder, tries to persuade Vittoria and Zank to a suicide pact, but they realize the pistols are empty. As they celebrate, Flaminio reveals he is still alive. In a sudden twist, Lodovico and Gasparo enter and kill Vittoria. Giovanni, Bracciano's son, and the new duke arrives with officers discovering Flaminio's crimes. The play closes with Giovanni sending Lodovico away for interrogation. The Duchess of Malfi. The Duchess of Malfi by Webster emerged during the Jacobean era, aligning with Shakespeare's final years. Webster's source material is rooted in Italian history, particularly a true story involving Giovanna di Aragona. She secretly wed Antonio Beccadelli and bore him three children, but was tragically murdered by her own brothers, one being a cardinal, in 1510. Webster's adaptation deviates in several ways, including Antonio's survival for a few years after the Duchess's death and the addition of fictional elements such as Bossola's repentance, betrayal, and the murder of the brothers. The play draws from The Palace of Pleasure by William Painter, an English translation of an Italian novella adaptation. Webster's penchant for Roman Catholic Italy is evident in his other work, The White Devil. The Duchess of Malfi reflects themes and elements seen in Elizabethan revenge tragedies like Marlowe's Dr. Faustus and Shakespeare's Hamlet, Coriolanus, and King Lear. Additionally, Ovid's Metamorphosis is referenced within the play. The Duchess of Malfi unfolds against the backdrop of Roman Catholic Italy, a setting that would have evoked associations of corruption to contemporary English audiences during the Jacobean era. The play commences within the opulent palace of the Duchess, a young widow governing the Italian town of Amalfi. Her steward, Antonio, returns from the French court, while Bassola, a former employee of her brother, the cardinal, emerges from punishment. Duke Ferdinand, the Duchess's other brother, arrives with his entourage. In a private conversation with Delio, his friend, Antonio exposes the duplicitous nature of the cardinal and the duke, contrasting with the virtuous Duchess. Although young and beautiful, the Duchess's brothers aim to prevent her from remarrying, striving to preserve their honor and secure her wealth. Ferdinand recruits Bassola to spy on her. Despite Bassola's reluctance, he deems obedience to the duke as his corrupt duty. The cardinal and Ferdinand confront the Duchess, advising her against remarriage. She agrees outwardly but secretly plans to marry Antonio. Afterward, she privately woos Antonio, reversing traditional courtship roles, and they marry in secret. Months later, the Duchess is pregnant and Bassola, spying for Ferdinand, discovers her condition. The Duchess unexpectedly goes into labor, leading to chaos in the palace. Fearing exposure, Antonio and the Duchess attribute her illness to a disease. Antonio confronts Bassola, suspecting poisoned apricots. While Bassola denies guilt, he finds a horoscope indicating the Duchess's child. The Duchess gives birth in secret, later revealing her children to Antonio and Bassola. Years pass, and the Duchess has more children with Antonio. Ferdinand confronts the Duchess, scaring her and suggesting suicide. She admits her marriage, enraging him. She plans to flee with Antonio, vilifying him publicly. However, Bassola defends Antonio privately. The Duchess confides in Bassola, revealing her plan to escape. In Rome, the brothers learn of the plan and banish the Duchess, Antonio, and their children. Antonio flees with one child to Milan, and Bassola returns in disguise to capture the Duchess and her children. The brothers imprison the Duchess. Ferdinand cruelly deceives her, pretending her husband and children are dead. Bassola acknowledges his guilt and reluctantly follows the Duke's orders. Madmen torment the Duchess, and Bassola appears disguised to inform her of her impending death. The executioners kill the Duchess, her children, and her maid. Ferdinand's remorse grows, and Bassola is tortured by guilt. Ferdinand condemns Bassola, and the Duchess briefly awakens before dying. Antonio remains unaware of his family's fate in Milan, attempting to reconcile with the cardinal. Ferdinand succumbs to madness while Bassola exposes the cardinal's secret. Julia, the cardinal's lover, extracts a confession from him, but he dies. Bassola plans revenge on the brothers, killing the cardinal and helping Antonio. In the confusion, Bassola and Ferdinand die as well. Delio arrives, ensuring Antonio's son receives his rightful inheritance, and thus the play concludes. Themes of the play: corruption. A vein of corruption runs throughout the play, notably in the character of the deadly cardinal, a man ready to employ lesser beings such as Basola to commit murders for him, then cast them aside as rotten fruit. However, he is no stranger to murdering himself as he slays his mistress by making her kiss a poisoned Bible. Abuse of power. The brothers repeatedly abuse their power. Ferdinand is caught committing adultery but is not punished. The cardinal abuses his ecclesiastical powers to have Antonio's property confiscated and to have the Duchess and her family banished from the state of Ancona. Ferdinand and the cardinal ordered the death of the Duchess without any proper judgment passed by a court of law. Class. The Duchess argues that high class is not an indicator of a good man. At the time, Italy was moving into capitalism and one no longer needed to be born into wealth to obtain it. Though the Duchess and her brothers are aware of this, her brothers, concerned with wealth and honor, nevertheless strive to dismantle her marriage to Antonio while disapproving of their sister's love life. Ferdinand is particularly obsessed with inheriting the fortune to which his sister is entitled because it would protect his social and financial status. Ultimately, the Duchess is put to death for remarrying into a lower class. Cruelty. The relationship between the Duchess and her brothers is rooted in cruelty. The brothers often try to manipulate her and drive her mad. This cruelty is first evident when the Cardinal and Ferdinand lock the Duchess in her own home.